law, essential workers, and Department of Labor, and helped establish an immigration law clinic at KU in 2008. So not only does she bring a wealth of knowledge from her experience as an attorney, but she also serves on the board of AIRR that she co-founded in 2006. AIRR is the Advocates for Immigrant Rights and Reconciliation, if you guys aren't familiar with it. And at an event we were at last month, Angela said something along the lines of AIRR was created out of the anger that she and her colleagues felt towards the immigration response at the time, and it was continued because of the love and impact that they've seen with the response to AIRR, and has continued since then. So we're very glad to have you with us today. And along with her is Itzel Vargas-Valenzuela. I know your name. And she's recently joined AIRR as a program coordinator. Itzel came to the U.S. In 2003, when she was 11. There we go. And she was kind of had to navigate how to become a first generation college student before DACA was a thing. So her passion is very much fueled by her experiences, and she's made a lot of great strides in AIRR so far. So we're very glad that she's with us today as well. She's also a great artist. I don't know if you saw your work, but I just felt like we needed to plug in. A fantastic artist. And then last but not least, we also have Elizabeth Reynoso with us today. She's from Centro, and I'm sure all of us here are pretty much familiar with what Centro does, but if you're not, they provide educational, social, and economic resources, primarily for the Spanish-speaking communities. And as a director of community education and outreach, I'm sure Elizabeth has a central role to play in that. So we're very glad she's able to be here today to share her perspective about community responses that she's observed as effective. So, yes, I know we have a lot of content to cover, so without further ado, I'm going to turn the reins on to Angela. Thank you.
I don't know where she came up with all that information about me. Yeah, well, good morning. I'm Angela, and I use she, her pronouns, and I love my work. I love doing immigration law. It is just always challenging, but the most important, fun part is the people that I get to meet, the folks I get to work with, the folks that work in this field with me, and you guys. So thank you for being here this morning, and thank you for the invitation. But I kind of need to figure out what your level of knowledge is so I can adjust my talk a little bit. I met the folks here at my table. I know they know immigration, and so I'm going to give you kind of a little pop quiz to wake you up. And if you got your mouth full, just spit it out anyway. So I'm going to give you acronyms because immigration language, not Spanish, immigration language, the law has kind of its own little, get the mic up there a little bit. Okay. All right, has its own verbiage. So I'm going to shout out some acronyms that you guys should know, and just spit it out as fast as you can because I got a few of them and I want to see how fast we can get through this, okay? Okay, DHS. Woohoo! USCIS. I'd throw candy at you for people that say it first, but they didn't give me enough candy. USCIS? USCIS.
United Nations Immigration and Citizenship.
U.S. Citizenship and Immigrant Services.
Yeah.
Service. I think they should take service out of that name because they don't do a whole lot of service sometimes. How about CBP?
Customs and Border Patrol.
Customs and Border Patrol. ICE.
Immigration.
Enforcement. Those are the guys with the guns.
How about NBC? National Benefit Center. It's that huge complex that's out there in Lee Summit, and they handle all of the green card cases for almost the entire nation. Lee Summit, Kansas. If you ever need a contractor job, it's going through a huge. What? For the what?
Oh, no, you said Kansas.
Oh, yeah, they are in Missouri, aren't they? Yeah, Lee Summit. Okay, how about MSC? Again, it's the Missouri Service Center. I don't know if they do much service. Here's one you need to know, EOIR. Yeah? Over here?
Enforcement and operation.
Executive Office for Immigration Review. That's the court. That's the name for the immigration court. Did you know we have an immigration court downtown? Yeah, they have 3 judges. They run people through there as fast as they can, and it's open to the public if you ever want to go watch court. It's something you should tell your bosses you need to go see immigration court or go accompany someone to court so you know what's going on down there. Okay, OCC, Office of Chief Counsel. Those are the prosecutors that are trying to deport people. Okay, they've got probably 10 of them now here in Kansas City. 3 judges, 10 prosecutors, and they do a lot of deportation. NSC, that's the Nebraska Service Center. They handle most of the victims' cases and a lot of employment cases for the Midwest. And how about AAA? AAA. Yeah, well, that's just a joke. That's the Area Agency on Aging. or, you know, what do you call when your car breaks down? IDK? IDK? We were talking social media, that's, I don't know. That's it. And SOL, okay. You want to shout that one out? SOL. I tell you, that's what a lot of immigrants are. They're out of luck with our immigration laws right now. And, you know, immigration law is complicated. It's always changing. It's difficult for lawyers to understand, and there's a lot of bad immigration lawyers out there. And we are always learning because it's always changing. It's changing by policy. It depends on which president is in the office. It depends on policy, just, you know, policy of Department of Homeland Security, which secretary's in position at the time. And it depends on our state legislatures. And that's kind of what we're here to talk about today. It's what the state legislature in Kansas did with this law. It's hard for immigrants to figure out how to navigate the process to get legal. And sometimes in my world, it's kind of hard to find people who are empathetic, who are who sympathize with immigrants because they found their way through several countries and they got to our border, right? They were able to navigate that. Why can't they navigate how to get their green card? And why didn't they just get in line? You hear that all the time, right? And the fact is that for many people, there's not a legal way to get in line or to get through the process. And that's why we are all here to figure it out and to find ways to help. In my world, my practice currently is helping mostly victims of violent crime. People who are in the United States unlawfully and they're a victim and they report it and they cooperate. They're able to get legal in the United States. Anyone want to take a guess how long that takes?
Forever.
Forever! Maybe about 12 years now, right? Maybe it might be 4 or 5 years and they'll get a work card, but it takes a long time. And so lot of deportation defense. I get to visit those judges down there, and it's never a fun thing to do. I went this week, man, and I got a trial that got scheduled for September of 2026. Okay, yeah, that's no fun. And that case started with me in 2019. So we're up to 2026. I want to retire. I keep screwing up my retirement date. I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Well, the Kansas legislature, you guys ever go over there and sit in hearings? Yeah, we need more people to do that and watch what they're doing. But they're kind of sneaky. Sometimes they try to get bills through as fast as possible. And that's one thing that happened with HB2350. And this law is about human smuggling. And what do you think of when you think about human smuggling? Just forget this up here. What do you think about human smuggling?
Human trafficking.
Come on. History, come on.
Slavery. Obviously.
What was it?
Slavery.
Slavery. Who was our hero? Who was our Moses?
Right.
Harriet Tubman, smuggling people out of the South to freedom. How about Nazi Germany smuggling Jews out? How about smuggling Palestinians out of Gaza? That's on the news all the time right now. Smuggling a boyfriend out of the window so before my dad catches him. You know, human smuggling. Well, when I started practicing law in the 80s, we had some really amazing women in western Kansas. They were nuns in central Kansas, and they ran the Underground Railroad to get Central Americans who couldn't get asylum in the United States because it was political. They got Central Americans to Canada so they could apply for asylum. Those women were amazing. Human trafficking, I think of Law and Order and SUD. You know, they have episodes about the young girls that are smuggled into the United States and put into the slave trade. And that's really the hype behind this law, the way they got it passed. No one wants human smuggling in Kansas. And then one more. You know, human trafficking, human smuggling actually really does exist for our immigrant community. It's a huge business. The coyotes, the people that do it for profit to help guide people through the desert, help bring people safely for a price, and it's business. And I can tell you stories, and I try to ask my clients, what did it cost to cross that border? Where did you cross? How did you do it? Here's one that just broke my heart. Mom came to the United States to work so she could send money back and support her family, support her young daughters that she left behind with her mom. Grandma's raising the kids. The girls are in their teens now. Grandma died. What are they gonna do? You know, they had no one to take care of them. They sold everything. They raised $10,000. They paid that to a coyote who brought them to the border and turned them over to ICE or the Border Patrol. Money's just lost. They don't have a right to come to the United States. So that whole process just ended them up in deportation. And that's a typical story, let me tell you. You guys know that. Well, human smuggling got these legislators over in Kansas all hyped up and got this passed. This bill that was proposed got very little scrutiny, And for sure, very little testimony because they did it so fast and didn't really give opportunity for the public to speak out. I don't know if any of you guys made phone calls over there. If I was a Kansan, I don't live in Kansas, but if I did and I wanted to take my undocumented husband to church on Sunday morning, I might get arrested for human smuggling. Just don't pass this law. It's just trying to get them to think a little bit before they voted. But it passed, and it passed with huge numbers. And then our wonderful governor vetoed it, and then they passed it again. They overrode her veto, and it's the law, and it went into effect July 1st. And we haven't seen very much about it since July 1st. There was all kinds of fear. I can tell you that every immigration lawyer's phone was ringing off the hook, and the immigration lawyers don't have a clue what to do. You know, they're not criminal lawyers, most of them. And so the first thing with this bill is, with this law, if someone gets charged, is they need to get a good criminal lawyer. Have any of you guys ever been charged with a crime? No? Oh, yeah? All right. I have. Oh, man, I just got a ticket through the mail. I didn't even know I violated the law. They sent me a picture of my car and Colorado in the speeding lane. Sorry. No, I got it. It was on my bucket list. I wanted to get arrested. So we went down and we shut down the street in front of the Supreme Court in Jefferson City for immigration. It was not very scary. They just zip tied you and gave you a ticket and then let you loose and you pay $50. Okay, so that was it. But actually getting arrested and put in jail, it's sort of like it is on TV. We all should go try it sometime just so we can speak from experience, right? They book you, they take your picture, they take your fingerprint, and then you may be sitting in jail. Now, my clients don't want to sit in jail. It's not a fun thing to do, but the worst part when you get picked up on traffic or DUI, whatever, and you're put in jail, is that if you say you're not born in the United States, they're going to call immigration. That's what the jails do. Immigration will then either visit the jail or make phone calls to the jail and check your history and decide whether or not they're going to pick you up. So, first thing, if any of our clients, anyone you know is ever arrested for this or for anything else, first thing they need to do is make that call and get a criminal lawyer to try to get out of jail before ICE comes, right? Well, that would be the smart thing to do. But once you're in immigration custody, then you're going to need that immigration lawyer to work with the criminal lawyer, right? What I find with my clients is they don't want to deal with a crime, getting charged or having to go to court, and they'd rather just pay, just plead guilty, pay, get out and get back to home, get back to their children, get back to work. And so they're much more likely to just say guilty or no contest and take the fine if the fine is small or if it's not much time in jail, right? They've already spent a few days in jail. That's probably what they will get for this. We'll talk about that. But once they've pled guilty, we got problems. We got bigger problems. So this law that has passed, one, it's a bad law. We're going to talk about all the elements. We need to challenge it. We need people to get arrested for this so we can challenge it and try to get it thrown out. And maybe none of us have heard of this law being enforced yet. Maybe it will be enforced because they're starting up to know that this is not enforceable. Well, let's talk about why that's not enforceable. When you go to law school, if you pay attention, they teach you how to break down statute, okay? To figure out what the elements of a crime are. And if you're gonna be going through a trial, the prosecutor's job is to prove each element of the crime. And if they can't prove all the elements, then you shouldn't be found guilty. So with this wonderful law, the first section, section A, the cop who arrests you needs to believe that you are intentionally transporting, concealing, or harboring someone. And you're in Kansas, and you know or should have known that the person's undocumented. So I'll give you an example. I'm going to pick up my client down on Central Avenue in Kansas City, Kansas, and give them a ride to court. Because they don't have transportation, I want to make sure that they actually get there. Court's in Missouri. And so we go to our little hearing, and I take them back home. I've transported them back into Kansas, and I've done it intentionally. And of course, I know that they're undocumented because we just got a deportation order from the judge. I kind of meet the first elements of this crime. Hopefully, my client paid me for my time, so I did benefit from it. I did financially receive something of value. Okay. And I know that that person is gonna go change their clothes, get their uniform on, and go down and work at a fast food restaurant, or go do some landscaping, maybe for cash. And I know that they're probably being exploited at that job. They could make more if they had a green card or a work card. Those elements are there. Is it likely that I'll get stopped and charged with a crime? Probably not. I'm white. I'm driving. I got a license. Probably won't get questioned, even if I do have someone that doesn't speak English in my car. Okay? This law is just open for discretion. Okay? Cops use discretion all the time. If they see a car full of brown-skinned people, they may be more likely to pull them over, right? It happens all the time. So we have heard, after this law passed, we've heard several municipalities, sheriffs, mayors, come out and say, you guys don't need to worry, we're not going to enforce this law. Okay? We're not going to do it. But they have the discretion to do it. It's their job to enforce the law. And are they going to enforce speeding laws, DUI laws, or do they choose to pull this one out of their pocket? Right? You guys all from Kansas? Pretty much? Missouri. Okay. Well, don't feel too comfortable because it's coming here too. Okay. They did propose this bill, something similar from Missouri. It just didn't get passed yet. Worse. Estelle says it's a worse language than this one. I'm a Missouri resident, and I see with my clients that there's one local town here that has just really rotten police. Belton. I tell all my clients to get the hell out of Belton. Don't go there, because they are typically turning people into ice. And they'll hold them longer than they're supposed to, and they'll wait until the ICE officer gets there. So I can envision the Belton police being really aggressive at enforcing something like this. Luckily, Belton's in Missouri and it hasn't passed it. But I don't know of any Kansas towns. You guys, do you hear stories from Kansas towns where the police are particularly awful?
More southern, yeah.
Western Kansas. Well, you know, but it depends on where you're at in Western Kansas, because Ulysses or Garden City, you know, they're more than 50% immigrants, and they need them in their towns. But the police, and it passed a law in Garden City a while back that anytime you're stopped and you're driving without a license, you have to go to jail. They will hook you in. They won't just write you a ticket. So that was one step in the wrong direction for Garden City. But so it depends on discretion of the officer. So the officer can write a ticket for human smuggling and book you into jail, and then they send the facts and the documents over to the prosecutor's office, and the prosecutor has to decide, is there enough that I can prove this case in court? And then they decide whether to charge the person or not with the crime. So maybe they won't. Maybe they'll just say decline to prosecute, and the person is released from jail. That'd be lovely. So we got to work on the police departments, we got to work on the prosecutors, and then we got to make sure that we have criminal defense lawyers to fight these cases instead of pleading people guilty. Because this, you'll notice, it's not all there. It is a felony level crime. Okay? So with a felony level crime, you can be sentenced to time in jail. And so any person that is charged with this is entitled to a free lawyer. What do you know about the public defender's offices? I got a thumbs down back there. Oh, public defenders are just good people that are overworked. Or maybe lawyers that can't make it in a real firm. Or, I did not say that. I did not say that. I was a legal aid lawyer in Wyandotte County for 3 years, and let me tell you, legal aid lawyers get absolutely no respect in the bar association, not the drinking bar. In the bar association and with the courts, legal aid lawyers get no respect. And it's kind of the same way with a lot of public defender lawyers. If I was charged with a crime and I could afford to hire a private attorney that had a good track record, that's what I do. But many of our clients do not have the money to hire a criminal lawyer. And if it's a felony case, it's going to be thousands of dollars. And so they take the free lawyer, and the free lawyers have, you probably read the news stories, they are way overbooked. They can't take every case to trial. They plead cases out. A good plea deal is a win. It goes on their win column. Okay? But for our clients, if they plead guilty to this, it's deportation. It's time in jail. It's loss of their family. It may be loss of their life if they go back to a country that's dangerous. And it could be a bar from ever being able to fix their papers, right? Because criminal stuff on your record makes it more difficult to earn your green card. So, there are consequences. And we've got to figure out how to get this law repealed. But, you know, we're all pretty much up in arms over this, and lots of people are afraid. But it's really nothing that new. We already had a human trafficking law on the books in Kansas. Pretty much the same thing. We already have human trafficking federal law. Pretty much the same. If someone is really trafficking someone for the sex trade or for the slave trade or for exploitation, it's already a crime. So this is just a law in Kansas. So why do you think they did this, Itzel? What was the reason?
We haven't touched them who has the higher authority. Can't hear you.
We hadn't touched on.
Who has the highest authority?
Oh, man.
And I do, we
Has the
think
highest-
that's the person behind it.
We suspect, we have no proof, okay, but we suspect that our lovely Attorney General was behind the passage of this law, the introduction of the bill, the...
Testified in the Senate.
Yeah, he testified. He loves testifying over there. If you ever get a chance, make sure that you testify after he does and give him some crap, okay? So we all need to step up and do that more, for sure. Chris Kobach loves to see his face in print and get his, okay. And Chris Kobach is the Attorney General who proposed this bill. It was specifically written to run immigrants out of Kansas, in our opinion. It has created fear in the communities, and people have left. I get calls from my clients where they're wanting to know where safe places are to move to. They're shutting down their businesses. It has had ripple effects, and even when it's not being enforced yet, it's having the effect that I think he hoped for. So, on that lovely note, we want to talk about, I'm going to pass this on to Itzel. We're going to talk about how we help our clients, our friends, our neighbors, our acquaintances, and ourselves, okay? How do you protect yourself when you see the red lights in your mirror? What are your rights and what do you need to do? You need to tell your friends what to do when the cops stop you or when they start asking you these kinds of questions. You want to run through that?
I know that talked about the penalties, and we already talked about the game law. So yeah, a lot of the stuff that we've done with this is education for our community, letting them know what their rights are, because if you don't know your rights, you can't practice your rights, right? And so we try to let people know. We do know your rights in general. They're usually based on immigration, but as a response to this, we said, okay, but it's basically the same thing. If you're interacting with ICE or interacting with local police, if you are going to practice this. So we try to talk about the First Amendment, right? There's been a lot of cases in the Supreme Court that says that you can't report the police or law enforcement, and it's based on your first right to free speech, yes, thank you. Under the Fourth Amendment, you have the right to refuse a search. However, when talking about local police, if there's an open container in the car, even if it's, I don't know, just a can of LaCroix, whatever, that whatever it is, and if they have, they see something, they smell something, whatever it is, that's enough reason for them to do a search to file a grant. But you may still ask and say I don't agree with that search, and you don't think it's a legal search. And under the Fifth Amendment, the big one, the Fifth Amendment, remain silent. You have the right to remain silent so you don't incriminate yourself. We keep telling our community, kind of like what Angela was saying, that people don't want to go through trials. They just rather pay, they just rather accept, their mistake, just plead guilty. In the same way, people tend to over-cooperate with the police. They think that I don't have anything to hide, so I'm gonna say all these things, right? I'm gonna help because obviously that's gonna help me if I show that I have nothing to prove, that there's nothing wrong, that I've never done wrong. I'm a good person, right? And so they start talking or they start nodding to the answers without actually understanding maybe what the police is saying, that's just giving them evidence on a silver plate. So we tell people like it's okay to cooperate, but know when you have to stop, when you draw that line and say, no, I don't have to answer that question. And no, I don't feel comfortable answering these questions because I actually don't understand what you're saying. So I'm gonna use my right to remain silent and I want a lawyer. And we always try to tell people, that's the main things. Remain silent, request for a lawyer, and also if let's say it's a traffic stop, right? We think most of these cases are gonna be traffic stops. If you're kind of delaying the stop, just say like I'm arrested or I'm free to go. Because if they're arresting you, they have to have a reason. They don't always do and they always lie. But if they do have a reason to and they arrest you, then you want to make that clear and ask like, if you are being arrested. Just so that immediately you say, all right, if I'm being arrested, I want a lawyer. And not, you don't talk anymore, that's it. So what can you do? It's just remembering that you have rights, and we tell especially this to the community, regardless of what your status is in the country, you are protected under the Constitution. All of this applies to everybody, regardless of where we're from, what our status is, if we're DACA citizens, residents. And that's kind of the beautiful thing about the U.S., right? That's why people come here, because in the U.S., people's rights are actually respected most of the time. But that's why people come here, because we come from countries where we don't have this, where there's sometimes some of our countries don't have due process. And so that's also why it's such a foreign concept to some people in the immigrant community. You want to talk to the agents respectfully. Like I said, you want to be respectful, you want to be cooperative only until you have to, but don't be angry, or you may be angry, but try not to show it, try not to have an attitude, because they don't like that, and that's just going to make them angrier. They're already going to be angry or upset if you're using your rights. They don't like when people actually, practice their rights. Provide IDs, only the driver though, as far as I know, only the driver has to show the ID. If passengers are being requested ID, they can give their name and birthday, and that's it. They don't actually have to show an ID, and they don't have to answer questions. So, let's say with Angela, if she gets stopped taking a client back to Kansas, and the police starts questioning her client, who doesn't speak Spanish, if they're undocumented, they don't have an ID or a driver's license. So that client doesn't actually have to answer the questions. And her lawyer is there, so that would be like a perfect scenario, I think, if they start questioning. Say, well, I don't want to talk without my lawyer, and the lawyer is there. And the lawyer speaks for the client. Passengers remain calm and silent, so yeah. Like I said, if the stop seems to be going wrong, just ask if you're being detained or arrested or if you're free to go. Again, you may ask for a warrant if you're going to do a search. And make sure that if they do show a warrant, it has to be signed by a judge. ICE often will show warrants that are not signed by a judge. It's like an administrative paper that they use that says warrant at the top, but it's not actually valid. They have to get one from an immigration judge. And you have the right to report. What not to do? Do not escalate. Use force again. Using force against the police or any law enforcement is a crime and will get you arrested. So don't do that. Don't run, and don't advise others to run. Don't carry false documents with you. It's a big one for our community. Let's make sure that if we work with our immigrant community, we tell them like, we know you gotta do what you gotta do. Don't carry anything with you that's gonna get you in trouble. That's a big one. That's also a felony. Don't lie to the police, basically. So that's one. So what to do if somebody, let's say, somebody's arrested, they're being detained in Milton, also Flat County, it's very known, it's very infamous for doing that, the same thing that Milton does. They hold people longer than they should, they call ICE. So what to do if somebody gets arrested by ICE? It's basically the same thing, you remain silent, you ask for your lawyer immediately, but the most important part, you don't want to sign anything. A lot of times people, again, because they don't have the knowledge or because they just want to get out and don't know under the pressure, the intimidation of the officers, they will sign, they're waiving their rights, they're waiving their due process, and it's their self-deportation, and then 2 days later they're deported, and they didn't even know that they could have done this whole trial to actually try to stay here. So that's a really big one. Let's make sure people know that they should not sign or waive away their rights. How to locate someone? You guys want to take a picture of this? If you ever know somebody that is detained by ICE, you can call the number, you can go to the website. You will need the person's A number. A person will only have an A number. It's an alien number. I hate that word, but okay. It's actually it's a formal name for the number. It's very similar to social security number. They will only have one if they've been through some sort of immigration process, whether that's deportation, if they're DACA residents. It's like once you've been booked by immigration, you will have an A number. So if somebody has never been detained by immigration before, they're not gonna have it. And so you wanna look them up with their name. For a lot of our community, especially within the Hispanic Latino community, we have multiple names. We have, maybe one first name, and maybe two middle names, and then we have two last names. So sometimes they will make mistakes when booking people, and so you want to look for the person with different variations of the name. There might be a mistake in the last name, maybe it was a Z and they put an S instead, things like that. So try to look, but I think sometimes calling kind of helps with that. And having a plan of action. So part of our Know Your Rights presentation also says, like, be prepared. As Angela was saying, private criminal defense lawyers are going to be pricey, but so are immigration lawyers. Immigration lawyers, there are no public defending immigration lawyers. It's all private because the immigration court system is under the executive branch, not the judicial branch. So although people have a right to defend themselves and be represented by an attorney, the government will not pay that. So there are no public immigration lawyers. So we always tell people, like, you have to think about the legal fees, and you have to have a savings for legal fees, because you're gonna have to pay bonds, which immigration bonds are usually at least $5,000. And that's the minimum, usually try to get the most out of you. And then you're gonna have to pay another $5,000 for an immigration attorney, maybe more. So we always tell people, make sure to have some savings, or tap into resources in the community with legal services. Memorize phone numbers. When you get to make that call, that free call, you may know your attorney's number, but if you don't, then at least memorize, one or two numbers of your emergency contacts, and then that emergency contact will mobilize outside, right? They'll contact the lawyer, they'll contact your consulate, they'll contact, everybody that needs to be contacted. We also tell people to make sure that they have some sort of power of attorney in place that gives the custody of minor children or even property to somebody who does have some sort of status in the country. This is also just to prevent that families are separated. And then making sure all your documents are together. Sometimes, we don't know where our birth certificates are, our marriage certificates. Just want to make sure that everything, all of that is in place, and that the people that are going to be helping you try to get out of detention know where everything is. that sense. That way they can reach it so that when they go to the lawyer, they can take all of that. Some lawyers might be able to keep copies of those documents for you that already done a consultation before, or maybe you already had a case for some reason and now you're obtaining rights. So that's also an option. Some lawyers may accept doing that as well, keeping your documents for you. And yes, knowledge is power. We will still people. So we're going to jump back in.
Should we go on to the panel and questions? I got some questions for you. You guys, especially you folks with 2 phones, man. How do you record the police or an ICE officer when they're in the process of questioning you or arresting you? Okay, but where are you going to put it?
Well, if somebody else is there, with you, ideally you want to have another person record. If not, hello. Yeah, so if somebody else is with you, you would hopefully that person records for you. Just not interfere. I know you're not supposed to interfere, but if you're by yourself.
God, well, let me tell you, that officer didn't like your recording, gets a little irritated, grabs your phone and throws it across the room. I've heard of that happening. Okay? Well, the ACLU nationally has this great app that you can put on your phone, and you just hit record and it does it and it uploads immediately to the ACLU, and it's specific by state, and they have people, lawyers that are reviewing those recordings regularly. So in case your rights are ever violated, do you have it? It's a good thing to have, so it doesn't matter if your phone's destroyed, ACLU has the recording. Just another reason to donate to the ACLU.
It's a mobile justice app.
Mobile justice, and you make sure to pick your state so that it goes to the right people to review. How about, do we want to move on to just the panel and you guys can open up for questions? Because I was thinking a lot of questions I was going to throw at you, but we'll wait to hear what questions you guys have.
If anyone has any questions, please raise your hand and then I can bring the mic over to you, please.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Reynoso. I'm the Director of Community Education and Outreach with the Centro. Just a little bit about the work that we are doing together. And Centro is facing this unfair law that we have now in Kansas. We have to face this in our work that every day we are implementing with our community. The Centro now is responsible to educate our community about the law and the consequences that we are having or we will have in the future if we permit that our representations are creating laws like this. But the other phase is how El Centro is advocating with institutions, organizations, founders, and people in the power. How can we work together just stopping these difficult laws that we are having, as we mentioned, in the conversations, in internal conversations in the coalitions that we are part of. We assume where is the law or the policies that we are having now in the state, who's the creator, or who is the mind person that is creating the situation and is using the same resources that we know the community is using as an education tool, social media, because it's not surprised that we have the same or kind of same law in Florida. And immediately in Kansas City, we receive information in social media about law affecting our communities, even when the the law in Kansas even passed, because as the lawyer mentioned, the governor stopped and vetoed that law. But we are receiving information in our tool of education in the community is using the social media, impacting the movement that they are affecting their lives, moving to the state, or even going back to the countries that they are coming from, in difficult situations, higher difficult situations that they are in now, because can you imagine if you are living in Kansas for 10 years and take the decision to going back to Guatemala or El Salvador with difficult violence with your kids, and if their kids are American citizens, how impacting the education, health, life security. Our community took the decision to move from Kansas City just for the information that they are receiving magically from social media. Obviously, our politics, they know that is the tool that we are using, just the educational communication tool that we are using in our communities. They know because they have the expertise in our communities. But we, as organizations that we work together, we create this opportunity to work and going outside the communities. Itzel and I, we are part of the Mexican Consulate mobile information that they are using with the Mexican monthly mobile services that they have in the whole state. But we use the Promotoras de Salud. I'm in charge of that program. Promotoras de Salud, they are volunteers in our communities, but we have promotoras in the whole state. The law passed in July, but we create a convening in September because we receive a training from a lawyer in Dodge City, and we had a conversation with training with promotoras from Ulysses, Liberal, Dodge City, Garden City, Wichita, Topeka, Kansas City, in Johnson County, Guayna County, because we all the state, we need to be together, just working in our communities, inside the communities, trying to educate, as Itzel mentioned. We need to educate our communities in two phases. Obviously, the population that we serve, the Centro, promotoras having connection with, they don't have the opportunity to have a driver license. That means they don't have opportunity to learn about the process when you are driving, the law and all the rules that we have when we are driving. We don't have that opportunity, but we create a curriculum, as Itzel mentioned. What is the basic information that we need to have when you are driving? But the most important piece is know your rights and your responsibilities when you are driving. And you need to recognize when you are having an abuse from the police department. How can you record or use the institutions that they are advocating and defending for your rights? We have 52 promotoras around the state trying to understand why is the meaning of this law and how it's affecting education, security, health. In these conversations, we start with HB2350. When we talk about Medicaid expansion, we talk about the language access and all the services that we have. Because if we can't have that conversation with our community, we can't stop the laws that they are creating, affecting our communities. That's my first conversation with you, and we are here just for questions.
Give us some hard ones, come on.
I just want to know if, has anybody been charged with it yet? How many?
Okay, the first one we heard about was out in Garden City, right? Garden City. And the only way we heard about it was they put it all over the Sheriff's Department Facebook page. This landlord and his female partner had
properties, and they were housing 17, I think, adults and children, and they were from a variety of countries, and they had been charged with human trafficking and smuggling and blah, blah, blah. And I tell you, the comments on that Facebook page was, let them burn in hell, this is awful, thank you for doing your job, blah, 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 on and on and on. They were, then we heard the other side of the story, not from the sheriff's department, was that the landlord had gone to court to get an eviction order because they hadn't paid the rent or done something. They moved in a lot of extra people. I don't know why he was trying to evict his tenants. He got his eviction order, they didn't move. He went to the sheriff's department to come enforce his eviction order, and then the sheriff's arrested the landlords and used this law. We don't know the rest of the facts. We're waiting to hear from people out in Finney County to tell us what is the truth. But the way they just started announcing this on Facebook and blowing it up on the human smuggling piece, when we actually got the charges against the people, they weren't charged on human smuggling. It was only, yeah, they dropped that one. So we don't know. That's the main one we've heard about. And I think this coalition has set up kind of a reporting system. I know the immigration lawyers have a phone number, a place you can call and report if you hear of it ever being enforced. But so far it's been crickets, silence. No one's letting us know if they've been charged under this law. We heard that Chris Kobach, the attorney, that's the other piece I forgot to tell you, is going to have training for law enforcement officers at the Law Enforcement Academy in the future on this law, and then maybe after they're trained, they'll start enforcing it or trying to enforce it. We don't know. But I think in reality, it's done its job. What he wanted was to scare people out of Kansas, get people to stay in their houses. The piece that Itzel was trying to remind me to tell you is that the Attorney General of Kansas now has the power to remove sheriffs who are not enforcing the law. So as the head law enforcement officer for Kansas, he has gotten the legislature to give him the power to do that. So if there is a sheriff like Wyandotte County that says we won't enforce this law, Kobach can come after their job. So it's going to be very interesting.
Just because he can, will he? I mean, because it's a lot of ifs. But I want to go back to the person that was charged. So that whole scenario. And I'm looking at it from a law enforcement perspective. You said there were 17 people in a house. Okay?
There's 17 people in a house, in multiple properties.
So not in one house. So then where does that 17 number come from?
It's what they reported on the Facebook page. If you look up Finney County, HB2350, you'll see the post. And it's just, that's the information that they gave. It's the information that they posted for everybody to see. Finney, Finney. I was wondering if we could maybe put it up. Yeah, it's just that's the information they gave, that the sheriff's department gave. It's all we have. And then, as Eddie was saying, we, AIRR, went to Dodge City back in August with the consulate. And part of it was giving out information, doing knowing your rights, but the other part was trying to find information about that case because Garden City is very close to Dodge City. And we spoke to some people from Garden City, and we were trying to find out. That's how we heard the other story. It was actually a landlord trying to evict his tenants, and then he ends up getting arrested. But let's remember, the law does talk about harboring too, not just transporting. So I think that's where maybe they said that. And then also want to add that not only was the sheriff's department saying this is why we needed the law, they all all the representatives that were for the law, especially Representative Owens, who is the head of the Judicial Committee in Kansas, was like going out and saying the same thing. So even the representatives jumped on it and were like, yes, this is exactly what we needed. And that's what we were scared too of. Like, this is just a case that's going to give them fuel and prove that we needed this law. But from what we've heard from friends at the national level who've been following this, those charges have been dropped. So we actually haven't heard anything else about it.
I don't think that needs to go on social media, that the charges have been dropped.
No, that's not even on there.
The humans, smuggling has been dropped. What were they charged with? Is that public record? That, yeah, it is public record. So if you wanted to find out, would you find out? Yeah.
Yes.
Do you know?
I think that they gave us all the charges, and it was charge after charge for each individual person, and they were charged under the human trafficking statute that was passed in 2012 in Kansas. And they said they were charging them under the human smuggling, and that one was dropped. And then we do not know what has happened to the case since then. But it should be public record, yes. So you guys, let's just talk about if someone is charged under this law and they plead guilty. If they plead guilty as it's charged, it's a felony level case, right? And the possible sentencing for a felony in this situation, and we need magnifying glasses for a level 5 felony. It's a person felony, and the possible sentence is 26 months. So you could spend 2 years in jail if you plead guilty to this and don't fight it. Right? That's the median sentence. It's a possibility. And if in any situation they find that there were weapons used, then it could be elevated to an aggravated felony. So this is serious stuff. And fortunately, we haven't heard of anyone else being charged under this law yet. That's why we need people on the ground to ask questions, okay? And report it if you do hear anything.
I had a question about the transportation piece because that seems really broad. Is it like, oh, sorry. I had a question about the transportation piece. I mean, do they even have like guidelines of they just have to be in the vehicle, period, or like 30 miles, or just as transportation?
No, there are no guidelines. I know what you saw earlier is what the bill says. That's the actual language of the bill. We had part 1 and part 2 because the bill does have 2 parts. It's the first part that we don't like. The second part makes complete sense to me. It's about human trafficking. It even says it on there. We don't have a problem with part 1. Part 2. It's part 1 that's the problem. And that's it. What you saw, that's it. That's why you're saying it's so vague. It's so like, there's no instruction. So
people drive a lot less time.
right. And on that note, I just want to like add like part of when we were out in Topeka, trying to talk to legislators, change their hearts and minds. We're especially focusing on Republican legislators because we knew, and this was after the veto, so we were up there the day that we're going to be doing the hearings to override the veto. And we spoke to a representative from Western Kansas, I forgot what area, but it was the liberal Kansas area. And, we were trying to make the argument like, well, it's too broad, it's really vague, we're like afraid that this is going to cause collateral damage. That, we agree that there's a problem of human trafficking in the state, but we don't think this is the law for that or to prevent that. And we were trying to make our case, right? Trying to have this conversation as civil as possible. You know, he went off saying like the first illegals that came to my town, and you know, just using that language, and we were trying to stay calm. But eventually, when ended the conversation, he said, you know, I think I said, you know, maybe an Uber driver could be charged with this, a taxi driver, Lyft drivers, bus drivers, right? And he said, I don't care about an Uber driver getting in trouble if this is gonna stop smugglers. They don't care. They literally, some of them don't care about the collateral damage. And that's what made it clear to me that this was not about human smuggling. This was what made it clear to me that this was not actually about trying to help victims, that this is about what Angela was saying, what COBA and some of these representatives want. They want to bring people out of the state.
Just adding information, the work that we are doing now inside our communities, we are going to the local stores, libraries, churches, just asking our community how they feel with laws like this, how it's affecting their normal life. We need to know what they are stopping or they are avoiding in their daily life. Given this difficult situation that they decide to stop going to church or moving from Wayne County to Johnson County just for the soccer game for their kids, we need to have more information about our community because we are preparing our work in Topeka for the next legislation time, just talking with our representatives that how it's affecting, how can they need to support us to ask for just, we are against the smuggling, but we need to have a clear law about smuggling, not affecting other situations in our community and even further.
Layla's ready to sing.
Oh,
Oh, come on, you got the microphone.
not today.
Oh.
Yeah, not today. So our organization does work with undocumented people, and in light of this bill, our organization works with undocumented people, and in light of this bill, what should we be careful of? What should we watch out? If they come for us, what should we do?
Well, you know, AIRR, our advocates organization, we have an accompaniment program. It's scary to go to court. It's scary to go pay your bond or whatever. So we have volunteers who are trained to go to court with them, sit, and get them back home so that they show up for their court on time or they are able to pay their bonds. And they transport people in Kansas. One thing we make sure is that they never take any financial compensation for their gas, or they don't let them buy them food. They don't give them any gifts. They are doing this for free, and so that's one thing. For you guys, it's part of your job to transport, and you're being paid, but you're not being paid by the immigrant client. One thing I would say is make sure that people know what their rights are. Make sure that they do not volunteer information if you're ever questioned. You want to make sure to have help dialed in on your cell phone, right? So if you need to say, officer, why are you asking me those questions? You want to search my car? I'll be happy to sit right here on the highway until you get a search warrant. I don't care how long it takes. Take your time, okay? And be willing to sit there for an hour or two or three until they get that search warrant. We know that they're going to give up and they're going to go somewhere else. They're going to let you go. So I think no one wants to be stopped by a cop, right? I get scared when I just see them around me, right? It makes me nervous. But knowing your rights, practicing a little bit, you know, and playing it over in your head. In case this ever happens, I'm going to be prepared, and I'm going to protect the people that are in my car or my employees or whatever. I'm going to protect myself and the people that I care about, and not blabber, okay? Not open up my wallet where they can look and see if I got other documents and ask me for those other documents. I'm gonna, you know, just knowing what your rights are and being careful, and then reporting it if anything ever does happen. Okay? Anything else?
I was gonna say as far as practicing, we keep telling people, you know, go home, you know, after today, after tonight, when you're home, like have this conversation with your family, like sit down and be like, hey, I learned about this today. I learned about my rights. Even most U.S. citizens don't know their rights when interacting with police. It's not just about immigrants, it's literally everyone. So this information, like, it's for everybody. It's our constitutional rights. So go home and say, you know, talk to your children or your spouse and be like, do you know what your constitutional rights are if you're stopped by the police? And if they don't, like, sit down and practice it, you know, maybe it's like becomes like a weekly tradition, you know, one night a week, you just do know your rights night, and then you'll practice it, and you'll play, somebody will play the cop, somebody will play, you know, try to make it fun, you know, do a little role play. But seriously, like, practice it, because it's one thing to know your information, and it's another once you're sitting there, and you know they have the training to intimidate, that they have the training to scare you, that they have the training to all of these things, to lie, because they are allowed to lie. They have the gun, right? It's scary, it's intimidating, and you know, your brain will go into fight or flight, and you just freeze, and you'll forget everything that you learned. But practice will make it better. So that would be my biggest tip too, like not just knowing what they are, but practice them with your family.
Yeah, as they mentioned, when I said that the Centro is advocating for just giving all the opportunity to receive the value of our rights, when we saw that this is smuggling, we obviously all thought about like immigrants, but this is not immigrant situation. This is affecting all. Because for me, as an example, I work with the Centro, but it's affecting me because I'm working with the population that they are pointing. The training that we receive at the Centro is how we need to think and change our first conversation with the population, because the Centro as an organization is protecting the staff, but the staff is in the clear mind that we can't stop giving services for the population that we serve because we are doing our work. We have a statement, we have foundations behind us that they support the work that we are doing, the public health, and resources for the people that they don't have the same opportunity that we have in the state. But the most important thing that we are sharing in our community conversations is the message that this is affecting all, not only the immigrant population or the people that they are affecting from the smuggling law. This is a big situation in the state because we have a general attorney that is showing us how is the way that they are creating for all of us.
Angela, I heard you say that this bill is unenforceable, that it's a bad law, that we need people to get arrested so that we can challenge it. What is it specifically that is so bad about the bill? Is it just that the language is vague, or is it something else? And how, if it does get thrown out or whatever, does that mean that the law just disappears, or does that mean that the bureaucrats have to make some changes as to what they do administratively?
Yeah. So a couple things. So back to the first arrest. If a police officer decides to enforce this, they collect the evidence, they send it to the prosecutor decides whether to charge. And if they don't, then the person's released or doesn't have to appear in court. If they're charged, they have to go in front of the judge and they have to approve all of the elements. Well, the elements are extremely vague. So the intentionally, the words are vague, the knowing or should have known. So the guy that you're giving a ride to work, he asked you, you know, we're working this job, can you give me a ride? You should have known that he's undocumented, and you should have known that he will be exploited at his job. It's vague, and so it's a very difficult law for the prosecutor to prove. But it doesn't mean they won't try, depending on the jurisdiction and the judge. And we've all heard of, you know, places where there's judges that are just like throwing the books at criminals, right? Okay, so a conviction is a possibility. Guilty pleas are a higher possibility because people won't have the money to pay to defend themselves. Or public defenders will work out deals and they'll plead guilty to this bad law that is defensible. Right? They could fight it if they have the chance. The only way to get rid of the law is for someone to get charged. That's why I'm saying, please charge me when I go pick up my client, please. I want to challenge this law, but we have to have someone charged under it first, right? And it's got to go up to the Supreme Court of Kansas and it has to be found unconstitutional to get it thrown out that way. The legislature could revoke the law. They could pass a better law. They could make one that is clearer. So there are multiple ways that it could change. For you guys, I just encourage you to let your representatives, your senators know that this is not the way you want Kansas to be. You want to be a welcoming state. You want to protect people. You want them to pass laws that don't scare people away, that make it possible for employers to get legal employees. You want our state legislators to let our Congress, our congressional representatives know that we need immigration reform that will help, not hurt our communities. And things are not getting better, and we need positive immigration reform, my opinion. Pick up your phone and call, please.
So going back to the constitutional rights that you were talking about, and I'm sure, I hope I'm not the only one that really, I know I have rights, but I can't recite those, and I can't tell a police officer what my rights are. So with that being said, we work with, at least our program works with some families who are undocumented. We also work with teenage families, teenage parents. Is there, or where can I find something that's printed out, something that I could give to my children or my teen families or families that, all of my families actually that I work with, to have that in their car just in case so they know what they're looking at?
Yeah, so actually there's things called Know Your Rights cards. And it is totally my bad. I'm so sorry I meant to bring those today. Just been having a sick baby, wasn't at the office this week. But we have them at AIRR office. You can stop by and get some from me. We're on Centro, on 13 and Central, right where the CABA, Central Pyramid Avenue is, Association. That we have our office in there with them. So it's you can stop by and get some cards from us. We can also order them online. If you look up the red card, Know Your Rights red card, you can order them. And I don't know if they're free or not. I shouldn't say that. But you can also order them. And they're like available in multiple languages, not just Spanish. And usually it'll be in English on one side and then the native language on the other side. And that's just to, you know, if you don't want to talk at all, you just show that card. Cops already know those cards. They know what they are. and they already know that you're exercising your rights.
Another thing is that the ACLU produces this booklet. It's cartoons, and it's in English and Spanish, and it goes through all the different scenarios. If someone's banging on your door and saying, you know, it's the police, let me in, whatever, what you need to do when that happens, and different scenarios. And it's a very helpful booklet.
Just like one thought.
And they're available in videos.
Even the tools are available, but we as an organization that we can work in collaborations, we there and in Centro, we have community education program. It's even better if you receive or create a space with your community, just receiving information on your own language, using examples, and giving them the opportunity to receive the materials. But it's more approach to have that conversation with them in a safety space. We can offer both. We offer that conversations in English and Spanish, virtual, in person. We are working together because our education is, they are talking about the immigration and situation when you are having like a difficult conversation with a police in a traffic issue. But we have the other part when you are renting, if you are causing struggles with your landlord, if you are having struggles when you are receiving information or services in the health field, or even when you are suffering other type of conversations about this situation because it's affecting all. Probably the landlord can have a bad idea about the law and he decide to just stop the agreement that they have, and it's a situation that the community is suffering and they didn't know that they have rights. That's why we offer this type of community education. If you are agreed, we have our cards and we can have a conversation with you.
Yeah, I mean, just to reiterate, we do human rights presentations all the time. Just on HB2350 this year, I think we did a total of 15, which is more, I think, from the past few years, and it was just on HB2350, just because the community was that scared. And it's been awesome to be able to work together with like the Centro. We also work with Revolución Educativa, the Mexican consulate. So yeah, I mean, definitely, I would say that's another resource. Just reach out to the resources that are on the community, and we can come and to you. Oh yes, cards, yay! Yeah, and those, you know, I try to give them to people. Just 3-5 and tell them to share with everybody. Yeah. Any other questions?
You mentioned that you have to kind of observe how this law has affected people's everyday lifestyle, and I know when we spoke earlier, Elizabeth, you were mentioning how more people are needing food and stuff like that. And I know a lot of organizations here work with resources and providing information to people. So what can you tell us about like the collateral effects of this law and how these organizations might be affected?
Okay, so I'm going to talk about something that's happening right now in KCK, Wyandotte, because of the law that I think is collateral damage to a bigger level. If you all are from Wyandotte, I hope you know about Safe and Welcoming. If you don't know, Safe and Welcoming is an ordinance passed in Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas, that gives municipal IDs to residents of Wyandotte County or the unified government. Because of the law, the commissioners have suspended to continue the program until the legislature clears up the language of the law. Angela just said it's possible, it is, but like from my experience talking to legislators and the way that they propped up this one case out of Garden City, to me it doesn't seem likely that that's gonna happen anytime soon. So that's like a very actual, like material way that the law is affecting the safe and welcoming ordinance because it's creating that fear. That's what, again, I feel that at the end of the day, what the law was trying to create is fear. The same way that it was in Florida. Representatives in Florida came out and said, yeah, all we wanted to do was cause fear. It wasn't actually going to be enforced. It might be the same thing here, you know? And it's working. And right now, we don't have a municipal ID in Wyandotte County because of fear.
Who is fearing it? So,
The mayor
okay, so
and the attorney,
the mayor stopped giving municipal IDs because of that bill.
yeah, they stopped going forward. They stopped going forward with the program. So it was in the commissioner's agenda a couple weeks ago, right? And they put it in the agenda last minute so that we think, very sneakily, so that nobody could testify against it. They put it in the agenda and the commissioners voted to suspend releasing the RFP, the contract that needs to be given out to the nonprofits in the area to issue the ID. And that because they're afraid that the city will be, and the county will be persecuted by COVAC because for giving municipal IDs, even though it has nothing to do with
And that's a statement that was made, or you just think that that's what's happening?
No, that's already happened. If you can watch the commissioners meeting, was it the 28th?
Yeah, they need a public comment, so it's on the record.
Yeah, it's happening. So as part of Centro and AIRR, also part of the Safe and Welcoming Coalition, we've been fighting for the last couple weeks to try to figure out how to fight for that and continue making sure that that ID is released because people need it. People need a municipal ID, not just immigrants, everybody. You know, there's people that don't have an ID for whatever reason, whether they're houseless or they're missing a requirement. This is an ID for everybody. And they're passing it out of fear, unfounded fear, I would say, because they have received information from the ACLU and from the National Immigration Lawyer Center attorneys that this does not affect safe and welcoming at all, but they're scared. And I get it, Kovac is a pretty intimidating guy, but we, you know, part of our job as advocacy groups also is fighting for those things for our community. So that's one thing I can think of.
Yeah. Any of you guys know about the West Side Can Center?
Yes.
Yeah, well, the West Side Can Center, years ago, a great friend of immigrants, Linda, used to run the West Side, or created the West Side Can Center. And she started giving people laminated identification cards. Just like if you went to Sam's Club and you got a membership card. And she did that because a lot of her homeless, undocumented immigrants down on the west side needed some kind of ID. And the cops, the community policing cops that were there in her office, were at a presentation like this one time with me, and they said, you know, we really like these. Because when we find a dead body, we at least know who it is. It just kind of broke my heart. Jesus Christ, yeah, exactly. The municipal ID, safe and welcoming ID that we fought 5 years to get that ordinance passed in Wyandotte County, and it finally was passed, and it really just gives people a little bit of dignity. They have an ID to get their utility bills done, or maybe a discount at some of the Wyandotte County businesses, be able to open a bank account, something like that. But the fear of the Attorney General coming after them for issuing a document that is a legal document just for DOT community members. Just kind of make them tuck their tail and run the other way and put the whole program on hold. So they need to hear from you. I know Wyandotte County's kind of in a little turmoil at the moment, but that mayor and his staff need to hear from you guys if you're...
The commissioners.
Yeah.
They explain about the second welcoming, but we create a campaign because we offer the enrollment for SNAP and Medicaid, and we create, when we hear about we create a media campaign, and we have interviews in the Spanish media about the mixed status families that they need continue just the enrollment for the eligible citizens that they are applying for different services. That's why we are trying to educate our community about this difficult situation, just trying to be able and receive information from any organization that we are offering the same information in our own capacity. But we want as Angela mentioned, we don't want to say the same faces all the time. We need to have more representations and more organizations working with us, because it's a hard work just being the same organizations all the time, supporting all the community, not only the immigrant community, just this is for all communities. We need to have more support from, in a state level.
Anybody else? Questions?
What are the best practices to address community concerns or share with them this information? I know you do a lot of front door work, but how do you express to people, like, not to be scared of this law per se, but also to remain vigilant and maybe stay away from, pulling everybody together in the car, or avoiding situations where, I know, Angela, you said, could get them into more trouble than just this law alone.
Yeah. I think, something that I try to tell our community, like, it's okay to be scared. Absolutely. Like, that's very legitimate. It's valid that you're scared, that you're afraid. But don't allow that fear to, like, completely take over and just, take over your life. And I know that's hard to do sometimes, but I kind of had the slide up there. Knowledge is power. Like, I truly believe that. I truly believe that if we have the knowledge of whatever is happening, then, we have the power of our choices, even over our emotions. So, I'd say share information, say, yes, I totally understand, like, yeah, you're afraid, and that's very valid. Here's what I have for you that might ease your mind, that might help you overcome this fear. Therapy too. That this is scary. This is a traumatic thing too for people. I think just knowing what the resources are for the community as far as handling emotions and having the resources, like shifting them to those places. Where you can go to this organization that can help you. You can go here, you can get mental health services. Just kind of knowing what those resources are for people and kind of helping them guide through those and through that.
Are there any Harry Potter fans out there?
Yes.
I love Harry Potter. What does Mad Eye Moody say? Constant vigilance. If I had a prize, I would give it to you. That's what I try to teach my clients, is be aware of everything. The cars that are parked on your street, because if ICE, it has nothing to do with 2350, but if ICE is coming to arrest someone, they observe the house for a few days, okay? And you need to be observing them. Be prepared and constantly vigilant.
Just to make some, a comment about, to answer that question as well, is I think it's really important for us to share the knowledge that we gain with our, people that are not in this kind of field or do this kind of work, that are just going out their lives and doing whatever they do. I think it's important to share the knowledge with others, because I have an example to give. I got a text from my sister the other day. My sister's a nurse at KU, and she said she had taken her PTO, but she needed some CEUs. KU was hosting a culture conference internally for staff. She attended, and she was like, "So have you heard anything about this thing, and it's HB2350 HB2350 and it's about smuggling, whatever. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, have we not had this conversation? I'm surprised at myself. So I started telling her about it. She's like, that's not what they talk about. I'm like, well, it's a culture conference, so I was kind of confused. And I said, well, what did they talk about? Well, they just talked about how great it was and how important it was and how it was saving lives. And at the end, they asked for donations. They asked everybody in the room to, you know, if you believe in this cause and you want to protect your patients and the people you serve, you should donate to the law and the enforcement of this law and to protect it. And that's how they did it. And this is the hospital system that treats, in Wyandotte County, that treats the residents of Wyandotte County. And that's the problem with things like this. That not enough people know what it really means for the communities that they work with, serve, and are supposed to be there, make you feel welcome.
You know, a while back, it's been years, I picked up the National Geographic, you know, like, and there was a long article in National Geographic about slavery in America. We have more slaves now than we had back when slavery was legal. And the indentured servitude type of thing, no one really knows what that means, but it is real. Those two girls that I told you about that sold their grandma's stuff and paid the $10,000 to get to the United States, a lot of people don't have that opportunity to come up with $10,000 to pay for their transportation. So they work out deals. They take loans. They pay the coyotes for the transport to the United States, and they're required to work them off. And if they don't work them off or make their payments, then people back home are threatened. This stuff happens, and it is around us, and I understand why we need laws against human trafficking or smuggling. It's real, and it is on us to be aware of who is in that kind of situation in our communities. That's not what we want, and that's not why we're against this law. We want people who have been forced into slavery, even if they did it willingly, oftentimes they're not able to get out of those contractual agreements. It happens. And so we want to protect people, and we want to protect people from bad police, from overzealous prosecutors, and from bad laws. That's a whole nother program, you know? But it is around us, and I see it with my clients, and we try to help them find ways to get safe. Guys, this is a little heavy for starting your Friday out, but I really appreciate your questions and the time you took today. We'll kind of stick around a little bit if you have anything else.
So I just want to add something, because I know Angela mentioned it earlier. She said, if you live in Missouri, like don't relax. And I mean it. Look up, it's HB2350 for Missouri. It talks about sanctuary cities, so it finds $25,000 per day to any city that has sanctuary policies in effect. It has an E-Verify part, and then it has the smuggling part. The third smuggling part says transporting, harboring, concealing, protecting from detection any illegal alien. That's the language of the bill. It's worse than the Kansas one. I think it might even be worse than the Florida one. It didn't go anywhere. It was introduced. It went into committee, and that's it. We think it was just Missouri. It was too focused on the LGBTQ bills and the abortion to go against the immigration stuff. But we have election years coming up next year, like the big election, right? And we know things go crazy on election years. I know every year is election year, but for the national. If you're in Missouri, be aware and pay attention to what's happening in the legislature in Missouri. Missouri is way more sneaky than Kansas. Way more. So I would say, you know, also like follow us, follow Centro, follow AIRR on our social media. You know, if we suddenly post and say, hey, we're going to Jefferson City to testify, I hope you all are there. Come with us.
All right, well, thank you so much. Let's give a big round of applause to our panelists this morning, taking their time and sharing their expertise and knowledge with us all. We also appreciate all of your time that you took this morning out of your Friday the 13th. Just wanted to remind everyone that on the tables, there's a little table tent. If you are not part of our Slack community, please join us. We're wanting to share resources and just be available for one another. Also, on the back table, there's some resources, the little yellow cards that Itzel was referring to, along with some other resources to take back to those that you work with. So we will have another event in October. That flyer is back in the back too. And just one last thank you to everyone. Enjoy your Friday. Thank you.